then once they have their hands on it, they have a sense of what it can actually do. All of a sudden, they start thinking about, oh, what if we try this? Or maybe we can use this tool to do that. And they experiment and they create all new efficiencies that they hadn't even accounted on. And that really excites me, is that these possibilities that are being enabled and created in all kinds of different ways.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 342. What was 2021 like in the drone industry? The best way to answer this question is to hear from some of those who helped shape the industry in 2021. I've compiled a string of audio clips from my guests that provide a great image of the past year. In this episode of the Drone Radio Show, we'll hear from industry notables like Brandon Torres, Nick Flom, Brent Skorup, Amit Ganjoo, Phil Larsen, Romeo Duracher, Stephen Flynn, Desmond Wheatley, Matt Dunlevy, and others as they share their insights into their companies and on the drone industry. But before we hear from our industry leaders, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have a great story on the use of drones that you'd like to share in a podcast, contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's hear from some Drone Radio Show podcast guests as they share their insights into 2021.
So over the years, what we've recognized is that just because you buy 10 drones doesn't make a valuable or a drone program that provides some return on investment. It is the action that is taken from the data that is collected, which gives drone technology its value.
You know, if I was a FedEx and I needed to pave every single road that I was going to deliver packages to, and then UPS, you said that I had to pave every road that I was going to deliver package to, and then the Postal Service, the same thing. You would say you're insane, you're crazy. Why would you do that? And the fact that we're kind of going down that type of path right now on UAS, you'd go, well, that's insane. Why would we do that?
When you look at courts and legal treatises, they mention that the surface airspace, this is under state control and state laws, including zoning, but also privacy and torts like trespass and nuisance. And in the surface airspace, all the state and local laws apply to the surface airspace.
UAM is just a step up from small UAS or UTM, right? Just the scale happens different. And instead of just flying below 400 feet, now you're flying in mixed altitude. You're flying low altitude and high altitude, and you're going to integrate with all the traditional crude aviation at higher altitude. So it becomes more complex. There are more challenges, but the building blocks are the same.
If we collect this and we can validate these signals, then the people that are in tune with these free signals, right, that in the time of need, they have the signal, and we helped in that process. We look at it that way.
Okay, I have to map this area, but I can't get to it, right? I actually can't access it either because, it's unsafe or, the road there's a landslide or something like this. And I think, being able to truly map remotely, right, without having to drive all over a site is something that opened up a lot of possibilities for us.
Now you have a fire where you actually have still energized lines running through. And so power safety, power shutdowns are becoming more and more common, where a utility has to decide what they're going to shut down to keep the community safe.
So I got kind of shopped around within my local utility here in Richmond to see if there was a problem I could solve. And a manager of transmission called me into his office and said, here's a problem you can solve. This is a tool. It's the sensor link ohm stick. It takes these types of measurements on power lines, and it's a big pain in the butt to use it on live power lines from a helicopter or a truck. So we want to find a way to do it with a drone.
The Army was the first in our government to put together a solicitation to help start rebuilding the American industrial base for small drones and to allow companies like Teal to build advanced technology while also building up our own capabilities to be able to one day compete at a global scale against someone like a DJI.
There was a lot of wind, a lot of snow, very cold weather. And they tested at ranges of something like up to 200 meters from the soldiers themselves. They shot down something like all 67 drone targets. They didn't have to use more than 3 shots each.
And then I stepped out from the umbrella and I saw what else is out there. It was an amazing experience to go through because the open source is really about overcoming some sort of a decision anxiety, that you're locked into a ecosystem that you have very little control of. And it's also about power of choice.
A lot of them are flying VLOS, and what they're doing is they have safety spotters at the launch site and at the landing site everywhere they go. So they're stopping people on the sidewalks, they're stopping cars, they're making sure it's safe to deliver. You can't just remove the safety spotters and be having drones dropping in small spaces where a child could knock the drone out of the sky with a football, you know? So that's what I'm talking about. How does that business model really going to work?
So the idea is very dynamically to be able to add new drones and to assign parts of the overall task to them in a very dynamic way. So the user really doesn't need to figure out anything. They just need to say, yeah, I'm adding another drone. It's assigned to this specific task, and the system should take care of everything else for them.
We believe that this is the most accurate mapping of this area ever done, and the first time anyone has been able to automate counts of these seabirds. And it's important because seabirds in general are good indicators of ecological change. So if we can study what's happening at these local levels, then they can act as a canary in the coal mine for the rest of the ecosystem.
In the absence of GPS, the robot does what, frankly, you and I do, which is perceive the environment. It looks around, it builds a map of where it is. And that's the very beginning of the mission. And then from there, it basically says, okay, that's my mission. I've got to go forward and explore this volume of space.
We are mounting a microphone array on a drone that would be flying over disaster zones where potential survivors could be trapped or be seeking help. The drone would be flying, capturing the sounds of those people in distress. The typical sounds they produce are tapping, screaming, and we capture those sounds, and then we estimate the position of the person by using very advanced signal processing methods.
How do we get them in front of decision makers and legislators that probably need to come out and see these things fly? It's taking place, but it's not happening in a location where it's convenient, and it's not happening in a location where we can get these politicians and legislators out quickly. I think recently the DoD just gave a big contract to Israel, and we're kind of over here saying, you know, why wasn't that an American company? Why can't we forward capabilities that we're creating right here in the United States and provide those services to our own government?
And the UAV Arc's job is to recharge drones en route, recognizing that drones have 2 limitations, which are frankly the same limitation, the range and payload. If you can charge drones en route, you can essentially extend their range indefinitely.
If you start storing enough data, you can enrich these different data sets. So you can say, that's not just a drone in my area, that's a drone that we've seen 3 other times in nearby incidents near us. And so we're really looking at that data enrichment, and that will not just help drone detection and counter drone systems, but also other dual use technologies like insurance, right? Because if you're able to tell what the trends are or the potential forecasts in incidents or incident locations, it can help insurance providers determine what the best premiums might be for a certain area.
I encourage the end users to invest and spend money in this emerging industry instead of waiting for the perfect solution that basically won't come anytime soon without support and funding. And number 2, I believe that, again, all security and defense companies should further work together and embrace innovation wherever it comes from, especially from SMEs, instead of playing solo.
Oh, there's nothing like drone racing. It is high speed, it is like high intensity, every single heat, every single time. I'll go to different places and I'll see people flipping through the TV and whatever drone racing's on. It always makes them stop even if they have no idea what it is. Go, what the heck is this?
You could go full throttle and just roar and rip down that straightaway. So you have someone coming into pit, and meanwhile, you just hear the sound of quads going, meow, meow, like full throttle right on the other side of pit row. It was just an incredible atmosphere. And you actually hear drones, I think, in your sleep after an event like that.
To be nominated in a category by some of your toughest critics, your peers, it should be a milestone achievement for anyone from newbies to seasoned pros. So I hope that filmmakers see value in both the community that's growing and also a sense of verification that people really appreciate their hard work, their early mornings, to get that shot.
In the US and Europe and in many parts of the globe, critical grid management teams being kind of locked away in cocooning for a month at a time, away from their families, whatever, because, this time 12 months ago, we weren't sure where this thing was headed.
What I believe happened for COVID for a lot of different verticals in the industry is that it forced companies that had been sort of thinking about using drones, it forced them to go ahead and say, yeah, we have no other choice but to jump into this. And we had a number of companies that came to us and basically said, we used to put people on planes or used to have our folks go and look at these things in person, but we can't do that anymore, at least right now.
The commercial drone market is just getting started. I mean, if you think about how many drones are being used for commercial applications, it's really, really small. I mean, compared to what could be.
By year 2027, the emergency medical drone delivery market is going to be worth nearly $1 billion and probably more than that. My system is order and magnitude better performance, fully reusable, much faster, more range, more payload, more speed. So clearly my product can dominate a very, very large section of this market by 2027.
The opportunities in the drone space are boundless. There are thousands upon thousands of applications for drones that haven't even been conceived of yet, that in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see a bigger and bigger part of our lives taken up by robotics and drones and getting work done that is either too dangerous or too menial or too tedious for people to be doing, or that just couldn't be done at all without technology like drones. And I would absolutely encourage any entrepreneur or people who are looking to become an entrepreneur in the drone industry to stick with it and see it through to becoming an actual business, because I'm positive it can be one day.
There's still room for you. So people who want to get in because they see how enjoyable and fulfilling the UAS industry can be from the outside looking in, I'm the one who's here to say, absolutely. Not only is it as fun as it looks, there's a place for people who have interest in a potential aviation passion or data passion to come in and have an enriched career.
The industry has changed enormously, and it keeps changing. It's an extremely dynamic industry. There are a lot of role players in the business. So what I would kind of recommend is people to do a lot of research, a lot of homework. Over the last 9 years, we've gone through a learning curve where we've started to identify which platform works, what type of platform works, what works for which client. And it's quite a dynamic situation where you need to kind of understand, you need to have a very technical, in-depth knowledge of how these things can become effective.
I'm surrounded by a bunch of innovative thinkers, very creative. There is that entrepreneurial spirit. The whole world of uncrewed systems and emerging technologies is just expanding so fast that whenever I show up to work, I'm always hearing about a new technology or a new capability and a new possible use case or a new problem that we can solve using UAS.
With both the drone industry and the utilities, I think we are at a inflection point and a fortunate point of time that the tools that are available to us can really change the, let's say, the risk paradigm of the communities that we're all in. It is Obviously, a very sad occasion, whether it's a fire that has originated from a utility or Mother Nature, when we have to deal with these things. But we have the technologies available today to really help improve that situation. I think that applies on the drone side. I think it applies on the software side, the artificial intelligence side. So the more that we can do to try to make sure we can apply those in our communities, the better.
The biggest advice that I will give is absolutely never give up. I mean, everybody says it, but I can't reiterate it enough. Failing is absolutely a part of it. And as a matter of fact, it's a lot of failing. And it is just taking these punches in the face one by one by one. And it's, you could be facing 100 failures in a row, 200 failures in a row. Just got to keep going. There's just no other way around it. You're not innovating if you're not failing.
Really make sure you have a good product market fit. When you're trying to do your calls with prospective customers and it's just not landing, you're probably solving a problem that isn't really a problem for them. So really focus on making sure you understand the problem that your customers have and that your product actually solves their problem as opposed to the problem you think they have.
Find something that's going to be really big and really complicated and make it simple. And do not give up until you succeed. I know that sounds awfully cliched, but the fact is the greatest things, the things of most value, are never easy. So find something big, something complicated, make it simple, and don't give up until you succeed.
I think it's very important to service a really large market opportunity and to also know that what is evidently large in volume may not be the only large market out there.
You have to make your own set of mistakes. You have to learn from them. And obviously, the less mistakes you make, the better, and use guidance. But it's OJT. The best way to learn is jump in there. You can have the best business plan in the world on paper, but till you do it, it's not worth anything.
That's it for episode 342 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed this industry compilation. If you did, please let me know. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.